Are you ready to dive into the 74 forms one sole verb can have in Portuguese, or perhaps some of the 20 prepositions? No? Okay. How about we look at a list of nationalities of countries you've never heard of before? When you start learning European Portuguese with an A1 course, you're bound to feel overwhelmed with all the rules of the language. You will soon feel lost in the smallest of details, left wondering when you are going to be able to have a chat with your neighbor. But worry not, because today I will show you what I call the anatomy scan of European Portuguese, a small roadmap that brings you clarity as to what will help you have real conversations. You will then dive into an A1 course feeling confident as to what to skip and what will actually help you understand and speak European Portuguese. It doesn't matter if my unschoolers have been trying to learn Portuguese for 4 years and feel that before I felt burdened, whereas now I'm excited to move into this new way of study, which is brilliant, or if they're complete beginners. They always jump into Portuguese with clarity as to what lies ahead. Considering people learn a language to be able to communicate, it makes sense to start by looking at how you can work on your speaking and listening skills. And yet, most Portuguese learners feel like they've invested a lot of time learning vocabulary and grammar. Perhaps they can get by in shops, cafes, and restaurants, but everything seems to fall apart when they get an unscripted reply back, which they can't understand. Conversation stops there and frustration kicks in. That's why in my program, Unschoolers listen first to stories told in a way we actually speak, with some help, of course. And sure enough, they report back saying they've had conversations left and right. What I'm saying is, listening first will help you converse faster. It's as simple as that. But the issue is, if your expectations about how fast you'll master Portuguese are too high, it's precisely when you hear naturally spoken Portuguese that will crush those expectations. This happens a lot to people who already speak other languages, particularly Romance languages. It happened to me too when I started learning Hungarian. It's only after you make sense of the way we speak that you see the benefits of knowing other similar languages. Until then, you get lost and you're bored to death learning about grammar and vocabulary. If you know Spanish, French, or Italian, you need to understand why you can't understand spoken Portuguese. Actually, not understanding one single letter at the end of a word can have a massive impact. You may come across as too informal, desculpa versus desculpe. You can unlock the meaning of a full sentence, sou grande versus sou grande, or you can identify the lucky person, eu como bolo versus ele como bolo. This is why training your ears with minimal pairs is the best way to distinguish very similar sounds in Portuguese. So find a list of minimal pairs with native audio as soon as possible, or simply grab mine from the link in the description. Now, in case you expect words to sound the same as they're written, forget it. You're probably pronouncing more vowels than you should, making some vowels too long, or even opening your mouth too much. As a result, we won't understand you, and you won't understand us. The letters that vanish, it's mainly the vowels we like to swallow, will be the first step to sounding more Portuguese, and definitely less Spanish. Mispronouncing individual words or even word clusters cause a big problem. We might not understand you, so all your grammar knowledge and vocabulary go out the window, which is why learning about the queen, my metaphor for the stressed syllable in Portuguese, and the king, think of word combinations such as hoje de manhã, is the number one reason your listening comprehension and pronunciation will improve. And how do you even know your listening is improving, or your pronunciation for that matter? My take on this is do phonetic dictations for the first and record yourself shadowing for the latter. If you write down the sounds of what you hear, even if they don't translate into words, you can then learn even more by recognizing what you misheard or didn't hear at all yet. As for shadowing, it's the first form of speaking and the safest way to get feedback on your pronunciation. But it's when you dare to listen to yourself back that the actual learning happens. Now, going beyond survival Portuguese and being able to hold a conversation is no easy feat. Juggling understanding, grammar, vocabulary, and speaking at the same time seems impossible, but there are strategies to help you start conversing in Portuguese. Asking questions and reacting are key factors to joining in conversations. I'll leave links to 2 videos below that help precisely with that for you to watch later. And what about grammar? Even those unschoolers who've learned grammar before, they still start with the anatomy scan, this overview of what they need to focus on. The other day, one unschooler made a really cool analogy comparing learning a foreign language to learning a new sport. She said, this module is like a friend explaining to you what the basics are, so you know where to direct your attention. The more you are able to associate the new sport with ones you already know, the easier it is to understand what's happening, but also knowing what's important helps you more quickly pick up the finer points of game strategy. Here are the patterns to recognize. Here are the important rules. Here are things that can be addressed later. In a nutshell, the important points to focus are the fact that gender affects everything. Word order is not as complicated as it seems, especially if you've learned Asian languages. The definite article, the, is tiny, but it's almighty. Verb conjugation may take time to master, but it's all about pattern recognition, focus, and creativity. You won't go far if you stick to the idea that sit and statt are just about permanent and temporary situations. Also, you don't want to come across as rude in Portugal, right? So knowing when to be formal and how is the utmost sign of respect. And since we cannot end this on a positive note with 13 items on my list, here is the last one. Have fun. If you find content that helps you learn without even noticing you are learning, then hold on tight. And if you want a sample of that, start working on your pronunciation by reading along My Very Strange Story of a Naked Man. It's filled with words impossible to hear. Bora?